This week was the last week for the legislature to file bills in both the Texas House and the Texas Senate. And as usual, everybody's waited to the last minute to get their bills filed. So this week alone, there have been over 2,000 pieces of legislation filed. And that is absolutely amazing probably to most people, but to tell you the truth, it tends to be what happens every session. I would like to talk specifically about two of those pieces of legislation that have been filed. First being Senate Bill 1714 by Senator Glenn Hager. What Senator Hager is trying to do with this bill is there's been some controversy in the groundwater world over whether or not somebody ought to be able to come in and get a permit for groundwater from a groundwater conservation district for, let's say 20 or 30,000 acre feet of groundwater whenever they don't actually have anyone who's purchased the water from them. And I guess we could use T. Boone Pickens perhaps as an example of this, where obviously he's bought a lot of water rights and owns a lot of water rights up in the Panhandle, and he then went to the local groundwater conservation district to get a permit. But yet, at this moment in time, he actually does not have an end user for that groundwater. What Senator Hager's bill says is that you have to actually prove to the district that you're going to put that groundwater to a beneficial use. And part of proving to the district that you're going to put it to a beneficial use is that you actually have to have a contract to provide water to someone who's going to put that water to a beneficial use. The other bill I want to talk to you about today is House Bill 3494 by Representative Frank Court from San Antonio. What Representative Court is trying to do in this piece of legislation is actually give the Texas Water Development Board more say in how much groundwater can be pumped in an area. Now, that's a little troubling for those of us who represent agriculture in rural Texas, because most of our folks support their locally controlled groundwater conservation districts, and we believe the local districts should be making decisions about groundwater in their area. What Representative Court's bill does is actually allow the Water Development Board to establish how much groundwater the district can allow to be pumped in a local area. And basically what that does is that gives the state of Texas control over the production of groundwater. And so that's something that certainly Farm Bureau has a real issue with. So Texas Farm Bureau will be keeping a close eye on these pieces of legislation as they move through the process.
Texas Farm Bureau supports a selection process for the Texas Transportation Commission that will ensure their accountability. This is a very simple and reasonable expectation, and Farm Bureau is not alone in this position. Unfortunately, the Commission has failed to be representative of Texas as a whole. This is due to appointments that have been made by Governor Rick Perry, which have resulted in unreasonable and often unruly decisions. Finally, members of the Texas Legislature have taken action. There have been 5 bills filed this session which directly deal with the composition of the Commission. I'd like to highlight one of them. SB 1351 has been offered by Senator John Corona from Dallas. His bill would maintain the 5 appointed commissioners, but it reduces their term limits from 6 years to 2 years. This is a realistic proposal that sends a strong message from the legislature for more accountability over the transportation agenda of our state.
Oftentimes in the session we'll look at different bills from several different angles. This next week in the House Agriculture Committee we're going to have a bill that you could look at as a property right, you could look at as a pocketbook issue, or also an animal care issue. And the issue is the floating of horses' teeth. Horses, their teeth continue to grow throughout their life. They do not have nerve endings in them. However, in certain conditions, the horse's teeth will have a spur that will come out on the side of it and will cause an ulcer on the horse's cheek. And so what you can do is you can either file that down yourself, you can hire a veterinarian to come out and file it down, or you can hire a person who is trained in filing the horse's teeth down. They have their own equipment. They're not veterinarians, but they do know what they're doing. But what this legislation would do would be to make it clear that you as the horse owner can hire whoever you choose to take care of your horse's teeth. I've had the opportunity over the last few days to make the rounds with the members on the House Ag Committee to meet with them, as well as meeting with some of these individuals who do float the horse's teeth, and be able to give them a better background of what the legislation would be attempting to do. Also, these people are able to show the members of the legislature what practice that they do, how the procedures are done, and the safety precautions that are in place. And it's been very informative for me, and I think it's been very informative for the members as well.